introduce John Sowers, who will introduce our guest speaker today. And our guest speaker is known to all of you. He's our current serving Executive Vice President, John Butler. John Sowers.
I'm substituting for Pat Gartland this morning. He's at a doctor's office. It seems like he got a call from his doctor early this morning and said, "Pat, I have good news and bad news for you." And Pat said, "What's the good news?" He said, "Well, you've got a week to live." And he said, "Oh my God, a week to live? What could possibly be the bad news?" He said, "Well, I've been trying to reach you since last week." Let it sink in. Moving on. He is not here because he had to accompany his wife, the former lovely Alabama cheerleader Kay, for eye surgery this morning. She's having cataract surgery as we speak, so remember her in your prayers. Our speaker today, as indicated, is our own John Butler. John leads the Atlanta Senior Care Network Niche, a nonprofit organization of several hundred professionals who provide care, advice, and other services for seniors in the Atlanta region. Over the past 11 years, as part of his career as a certified senior advisor, he has guided hundreds of families to find senior health care and related services. He's also taught thousands of hours of continuing education courses to many healthcare professionals, including hospital nurses, social workers, and case managers. His topic today is Aging, the Future is Here, and John Butler exemplifies that. So here he is. One question: Are you in business with Joan London? That was what I wanted to know.
Thank you all for this unusual opportunity. I have taught a lot of continuing education courses, but I've never been as intimidated as I am today to be talking to you all today. I would like to take a moment of personal privilege to introduce my spouse, my beautiful wife, Susie. If you'll stand just for a second. She loves this. That's her favorite thing. I do that because it's part of my talk. Last week, we celebrated our 37th anniversary. A few years after we were married, her mother, Jo, moved in with us and became an integral part of our family. And all mother-in-law jokes aside, she was a wonderful part of our family, and we had a great time together. She passed away about 12 and a half years ago after living with us the last 20 years of her life. She was a very classy lady, never looked her age, never admitted her age. However, toward the end of her life, we learned a lot about senior care in our home. A little over 20 years ago, both my parents stayed with us several times for a few weeks at a time as they went through some health issues. We learned even more about senior care at that time. We also learned firsthand what the sandwich generation was all about, because our son was about 8 years old at that time. Not long after my dad died 18 years ago, my mom joined us in our home. Yes, while my mother-in-law was still there. It was a hoot. She lived with us for nearly a year and then moved to a senior living community in the Atlanta area for about 10 years, and where we provided increasing amounts and types of care for her support. She spent the last 2 years of her life in a skilled nursing facility in the Atlanta area and passed away a little over 2 years ago at 100. My wife and I have now been working professionally in the senior care industry for well over 10 years. We've learned a lot, both personally and professionally, about aging, about senior health care, about all kinds of other senior services. So why are we talking about aging? Well, look around. We all know somebody who is aging. That's why. Not because anybody here is aging, but we all know somebody. I'm sorry that Lou Battaglia is not here today because he quoted something, he probably didn't make it up, but a few months after he had open heart surgery, and the first time I saw him at one of our meetings, I said, "Lou, it's really good to see you." And he said, "I'd rather be seen than viewed." So that's kind of where we are today. Let's face it, we are all seniors. Everybody that served in Vietnam is at least 65 years old. Some of us are actually even older than that. And we all have senior friends and family members, don't we? Many of us are unprepared or underprepared for what is inevitable for every one of us. And Thomas Jefferson said many times, knowledge is power. He did not make that quote up, but he did use it quite a bit. So what does it look like to age? What does aging look like? Well, there's a normal aging. There are benefits in the normal aging process. We have more flexibility with our time. We get to choose how we spend our time more so than we did when we were raising a family and we were working 60, 80 hours a week trying to make a living. We have more time with our family and our friends. We have more freedom to choose if we're going to work, where we're going to work, and how much we're going to work. We have more opportunities to serve. Many of us in here, hopefully all of us, are volunteering in some capacity to some kind of meaningful service to others. It also, unfortunately, means some things that are not so happy, and that is that, there we go, we have a diminished working memory capacity. We still have crystallized memory. We can remember some things very well that will never leave us, but the ability to learn new things is not as strong as it was when we were younger. Even years ago now, I tried to learn Spanish, and I could remember the German words that went where the Spanish words would go, but I could not begin to learn Spanish. And it's probably partly because I'm older than I was when I learned German. We also have a reduced stamina and stability. Stability really has to do with whether or not we will fall. And I hate to say this, but all of us have an increased risk of falling than we did when we were in our 20s or 30s. It's just the reality. And it doesn't mean we need to stop living, but we need to be aware of this. I was with a guy last night, older fella. He was actually older than I, imagine that. He was in his 80s. He was walking to his car, and it was dark. He had a cane. It was a gravel parking lot. He lost his balance and fell. And it really hurt a lot. I went over there to see what I could do to help him. And as I was standing there, he twisted, and I heard his femur break in two pieces. So, now, I'm not saying that, what can we learn from this? Well, first of all, he shouldn't have been walking in a dark parking lot in gravel at night without somebody to help him. And that doesn't mean we have to be frail and dependent, but we need to be more conscious of the fact that we could trip and fall. And if we do, when I was younger, I could cut myself and just almost watch it heal. Remember how fast you would heal from things? If you hurt yourself, it quit hurting about 30 minutes later, and now it hurts for days maybe. So we're different that way now. We have an impaired sense of hearing and vision. Most of us here either are wearing hearing aids or should be wearing hearing aids. Because you're saying, what? A lot. I said, most of us in here, about 6 seconds after I turned 40, I had to wear glasses to be able to read. And our senses of smell, our senses of taste, and senses of thirst tend to diminish. The important thing there is that as we age, particularly women, and there's either women here or someone here knows a woman, when she gets over 60 or 70 or so, they have a tendency to get a urinary tract infection because they're not as thirsty, they don't drink enough water, and it causes, often it leads to a urinary tract infection. It can really drive drive things crazy for a while. It also affects your person's mind. So, sense of taste, sense of smell, sense of thirst. What does aging feel like? As two couples walking down the sidewalk, the two men were in front on the sidewalk, and the two women were a few yards behind, talking to each other. And one of the guys says, my wife and I went to a great restaurant last night. Food was excellent, a great atmosphere, wasn't very expensive. We ought to go sometime. He said, what was the name of the place? He said, oh man, what's that flower that's got thorns on the stem? You mean a rose? Right, rose, right. Rose, what was the name of that restaurant we went to last night? So it affects all of us occasionally at least, right? So what are some of the, I want to get to the good stuff in a minute, but there is important to set the stage for what we are used to seeing. As John said in the introduction, I've worked with hundreds of families, so I see a lot of this every day. Common medical conditions that affect us as we age. 25% of us have some kind of heart disease, or will. 40% or more of men have cancer. I have to say in this room, having had exposure to Agent Orange, that number is probably higher of us who have been exposed to have some level of cancer. Most of the time, cancer is treatable. That's good news. Heart disease, by the way, living with a congestive heart failure is a lifestyle disease. You can actually live successfully for many, many years with some level of heart disease. Diabetes affects about half of us over 65. Osteoporosis, low bone density, affects about half of us or more as we age. Again, the reason that's important to know is not to make you afraid, but to make you aware. When you're walking to the car with a box in your hands, you really need to be a little bit more cautious of the fact you maybe need to step over one of those curb things rather than falling over it. Arthritis affects about 12% of us. Alzheimer's, the most common type of dementia, about 6 or 8 types of dementia. Alzheimer's is by far the most common. About 10% of folks over 65 will be affected by Alzheimer's. 60 to 80% of dementia is Alzheimer's, and different types of dementia. Like I said, dementia really refers to any degenerative type cognitive issues that you might have. There's different varieties of that. 2/3 of people affected by Alzheimer's are women. In the vision side, macular degeneration affects about 1/3 of us once we hit about 75. Cataracts. Fortunately, cataracts can be operated on and fixed, but about half of us over 80 will have had cataract surgery. We will need it. Glaucoma doesn't affect that many of us, less than 1%, about 1%. COPD, the difficulty of getting enough oxygen in your lungs to live successfully, will affect a good percentage of us, but only about 6.5%. Okay, I get it, right? Actually, I don't get it. I get it. Getting old is not for sissies, right? But what can I do about it? That's really the point of this little talk today, and I hope I can help some of you, if not all of you, if you're willing to help me help you with this. And I don't know why. Most important thing you can do is look at your lifestyle and see what you can do to improve and change and update your lifestyle. Healthy diet. I know we all like, well, some more than others, like food that just tastes good but is not very good for us. But eating better, eating more healthy, can make a huge difference in your ability to stave off degenerative kinds of progressive diseases. Regular exercise not only is good for you physically, but helps you think better. It improves your mood. And yes, it reduces risks of falls when you're exercising 3 to 5 times a week. Another thing you can do is think about and plan where you're going to live. Susie and I made the decision actually about 5 years ago, and we pulled the trigger about 3 years ago, and we downsized to a home that we can stay in safely for a long time. The house we had was a drive-under garage, 2-story. We moved there because it had a full bathroom and bedroom on the main level. So her mother was living with us. That's what we needed for her. That made the rest of the house pretty big, bigger house than we really needed. So we finally were able to get rid of that house and move to a much smaller house. Painful at the time, getting rid of about 90% of our stuff, and I'm not making that up. But looking back on it, it was a very healthy, freeing experience. We have a house now that's all on one level. The doors are bigger, they're wider. The car's on the same level as the rest of the house. and it's really a freeing thing. And we made the conscious decision to do that, knowing that the house we were in would not sustain us long term. It's a good idea to think about that. Most people, I think the percentage is almost 90% of people that are 65 or more want to stay where they are for as long as possible, preferably until they are no longer needing a place to live on this earth. So that's called aging in place. What does it take to age in place? We'll talk about that in a second. The second level after that is there's senior living communities popping up all over. There are more senior living communities within 5 miles of our house than Starbucks. Easily. Probably more than McDonald's. There's 2 within walking distance of our house. One is just being open in a month or so, and the other one is just breaking ground to be open a year from now. Independent living communities is the first level, and it allows a person to live in a place where they take care of everything except you. They take care of your meals. They'll do your laundry, your sheets, and bedclothes, but not your personal laundry usually. And you can live there for a few $1,000s a month and not have to worry about too much stuff. Assisted living communities is the next level up, and there are a number of senior communities that offer both independent and assisted living. You choose based on where you need to be. You might move from one to the other. And PCHs, personal care homes, is kind of a phenomenon in Georgia at least. A personal care home you typically think of as actually a ranch-style house that will house 4, 5, or 6 people that live there in the room. Some of them have 2 persons per room. Some have 1 person per room. There's usually somebody there 24/7, but there's usually only 1 person there or 2 or something besides someone to fix lunch. So it's a different kind of a lifestyle. But because of the licensure changes in Georgia, assisted living communities that didn't come to a certain level of code, many of them just became personal care homes by license. You can't tell from the building, but the building might say, let's say Acme, used to say Acme Assisted Living, now it just says Acme Senior Living because they didn't pass the assisted living license, and now they're a personal care home license. One of the biggest issues about that, that's easiest to understand, is you have to have a sprinkler head in every room. That means the closet included. So refitting a building with sprinklers was so cost ineffective, many of them just switched to have a license for personal care. A memory care community, much fewer, many times fewer communities actually have dedicated memory care space. But memory care space typically looks like a room about this size, not quite this size, with rooms all around the edge. And the person stays in that room, but they're encouraged to be out in the group area, and it's locked down so they can't leave without supervision. So that's what a memory care looks like. There are a number of assisted living communities that also have memory care. There are also a few places that are just memory care, but they're not as common as assisted and independent living. And then, of course, skilled nursing is the last step where you need someone you need care, you need someone watching out for you every moment of every day, 24/7. The VA has 2 facilities, skilled nursing facilities, that I just learned this morning from Dan, actually have space in them. I was surprised to know that. One is in Milledgeville and one's in Augusta. Most of the better skilled nursing facilities are full. They stay full. It's hard to get in them. And they're not cheap. We'll talk about the money in a minute. How about planning for where you live? This is the aging in place idea. What does it take to successfully age in place? As I said a while ago, almost 90% of adults 65 and older want to stay where they are. It's a good idea for you to consciously make the decision now. Are you where you want to stay? Are you where you can successfully live for many more years? If not, it's best to make the transition while you still got your wits about you and while you still have some physical ability to manage that process, because it ain't for sissies, but it can be done. So, changes of how you live. Wherever you are today, you can make your home safer, and you need to. Doesn't mean it has to look like a clinic or a hospital room, but there are certain things you can do, and you should consider doing, that's going to make your home safer. Be intentional about your movement and get help. Those are the 3 things I'm going to talk about next. The reason I'm spending more time on this than the other is most of us are more directly affected by staying where we are and being able to successfully stay there. So, what are some things you can do where you live? Remember I said our vision declines a bit as we get older. It's good to make your house brighter inside and out, brighter and more lights. You'll see better when you have brighter and more lights. Keep walkways clear in the house and outside. If you go into many of the homes that I've seen, you'll see footstools and magazine racks, and you wind your way through the house. And if it's dark or if it's not real bright, you have a good chance of tripping over some of that stuff. Remove loose rugs and carpets. They don't call them throw rugs for nothing. A throw rug is a bad thing to have. I don't care how pretty it is. And it becomes especially increasingly important to get rid of throw rugs if you or someone in your home has to get to where they're using a cane or a walker. It becomes a real hazard. Install handrails. They don't have to be ugly. Handrails and grab bars in a lot of places. A lot of homes have 1 or 2 steps from the main level of the house into the garage. Great place to add a handrail, even if it's just on the wall, so when you're walking in and out, you have something to hold on to. Grab rails need to be, or handrails, either one, need to be thoroughly anchored. They need to be installed correctly and professionally. Make the bathroom as safe as possible, ASAP, as safe as possible. Why the bathroom? Well, I'll tell you why. 80% of people who end up in a skilled nursing home, which most people prefer not to go, 80% of them get there because of a fall. And 80% of falls happen in the bathroom. So if you do nothing more than address the issues, the safety issues of your bathroom, you're a long way ahead of avoiding a life transformational event in your life. A fall that you may or may not recover from well or at all. The more time you spend in the hospital, if you fall, break a hip, whatever, you're in the hospital for a few days or a few weeks, and then in rehab for a few more days or weeks. The recovery time from loss of movement becomes weeks and months just to get back to where you were, if you can get back to where you were. I'm telling you, it's critical that you avoid falls. I know it sounds like I'm preaching. I'm sorry, I can't help it. Do everything you can to avoid falls. Start with the bathroom. Non-slip mat in the shower or the tub. A lot of homes have a tub, and when you step into the tub to take a shower. That's not a showstopper. It can be you can deal with that. Or they'll have a step-in shower or a roll-in shower. There's all kinds of variations on that. Either one need a non-slip surface on that tub. A transfer bench is a good thing to have if you have a tub that you're showering in. A transfer bench looks like a shower chair, but it's a little longer, and 2 legs sit outside on the floor of the bathroom, and 2 legs are in the tub. So you can sit down, scoot your rump into the shower, swing your legs over. It's much safer than always stepping over that tub. You can buy them at Walgreens. It's not that hard to find them. Being intentional about your movement includes, I don't know about you, but I don't see as well at night when I'm driving, especially if it's raining. And you know what? You don't have to check out of life, but you can start thinking about planning your activities so if it's rainy, especially, you're not driving at night. The best way to keep your license is to not have an accident. The way to not have an accident is to avoid the opportunities that make accidents most likely to happen. Become aware of fall risk. Did I say fall? Did I say you need to avoid falls? I'm sorry. I'll say it again from the Department of Redundancy Department. Avoid falls. Be aware of fall risks. Stop risky activities, especially when you're tired. Our house has a deck over our garage and one of those rickety fold-down ladders that goes down that does this when you get on it. And Susie refuses to let me get on it. So when she's not looking, if I have something to put in the attic, if I'm not too tired, I'll very carefully inch my way up there and stick something up there and then come back down. But I'm afraid of that thing now. It just makes me concerned I might fall. And the concrete floor in the garage is very hard. I was telling Ed earlier, I saw him on a very tall ladder dealing with this projector. You really should have tried to avoid ladders as much as you can. We're not as good on ladders as we used to be. And if we fall, it hurts a lot more than it did when we were younger. Sell your dirt bike. I fell on my bike, dirt bike. I was out riding in the woods like I have done hundreds of times. And I laid it down on the side, and I put my leg down to keep me from actually landing on my foot. And I pulled my hamstring, and it was very embarrassing because I'm not as young as I used to be, and I had to call my wife to come find me, and I was not a place where she could drive to, and I had to hobble out of the woods to the road where she could find me. It was a watershed moment for me. So I sold my dirt bike. Now, I don't know what you have in your life that's like a dirt bike, but it is time to consider things that will keep you from hurting yourself. Did I mention falling? Get help. Get help in your home. The best way to stay in your home successfully and safely is get the kind of help that you need to make it possible for you to stay there. And most of us have heard about hospice care, so I'll start with hospice care and work our way backwards. Hospice care is, as you know, I'm sure, it's for end of life. Typically, what it takes for a doctor to provide a hospice order or prescription is it looks like you probably won't last more than 90 days. By the way, I should have said this earlier. I'm hoping you're thinking about what I'm telling you about people that you know. This isn't just for you. You know people that this could be very important to share this information with. So I'm encouraging in that way. Nearly all of hospice is done in a home setting. Some people think that you go to hospice. You don't typically go to hospice unless you have a few hours maybe or days left in your life. Most hospice, probably 95% of it, is done in a person's home, wherever they live. Short visits, a nurse occasionally, maybe once or twice a week. A certified nurse's aide will come maybe 2 or 3 times a week to help you with certain things around the house. Mostly what they do is they provide medication and other means to help you stay comfortable. They provide non-curative medication for people on hospice. And it's paid for by Medicare, and it's free. I guess it's free. It doesn't cost you out of pocket. What is palliative care? Palliative care is not as well known. It's similar to hospice, except it does not require an end-of-life diagnosis. But it is also for non-curative treatment, mostly for pain, chronic pain, and you have short visits, again, by a clinician of some sort, and it's for symptom management, just like hospice care is, only it's for non-fatal illnesses. I will give you a heads up. It's very common for a hospice company to say, Acme Hospice and Palliative Care. More times than not, they do hospice. They really don't do palliative care. There are some that do both. Just be aware that palliative care is a different field, requires different staff, and many hospice companies really don't do that, in my experience. So be aware of that. Home health care. Again, it's prescribed by a physician for people who are homebound. They can't get out to go to therapy. They need someone to come to their home to do therapy. It's short-term curative treatment to get a person their strength back after a fall. Did I say fall? I'm going to freak you out now. Maybe wound care, whatever. And it's short visits for a specific time. The nurse might come or the physical therapist might come in. They'll do a function. They might be there 30, 40 minutes, then they leave. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, wound care, for example, following surgery, or if a person, hopefully not, but if a person is sitting in the same position or laying in the same position for a long time and develops a pressure sore or a bed sore. That's very hard to cure. It takes a lot of time to do that. That's what home health is. There are home health companies that have the name home care in their name. They are discrete, different companies entirely. Home care, I happen to work for a home care company. Home care, what that is a company provides a block of time, usually 4 hours at a time or more, to assist with activities of daily living, or instrumental activities of daily living, IADLs. You don't need to remember the numbers. One of them is called personal care, one is called companion care, whatever you want to call it. But there's two kinds of service performed by home care companies. Personal care. Personal care includes bathing, dressing, grooming, assist us with transfers in and out of from the bed to a wheelchair, or from a wheelchair to the toilet, or whatever it might be. If a person's using a walker, the person that's assisting would tend to stand with that person as they walk, maybe wear a gait belt around them so that if they start to fall, they can help them not hurt themselves. So transfers is important. Medication reminders, a person that has dementia, any form of dementia, might need help remembering when to take their meds. My mother actually needed help with her med management. That's the only thing she really needed for a period of time, because she wouldn't remember what to take, when to take it. So even though we had a pill reminder box set up for her, she would skip medications, and in some cases it was very important that she took them. And continence care. Let's face it, as we get older, some of us become less continent, let's put it that way. So helping with that is a big part of home care. Companionship for instrumental activities of daily living. Light housekeeping. Laundry, making the beds, that sort of thing. Meal preparation, transportation, taking a person shopping, running errands. This comes into play when the person that can do this and can still do it may have to start figuring out, what energy do I expend doing these things, which might mean I can't do some things I really want to be able to do. So they might have someone help with those things that person really doesn't have to do, so they can do the things they want to do. So get help. And what types of help? Typically it's one of two categories, one or two situations. One is transitional care, when a person's at the hospital or rehab. They're weaker, almost for sure, when they go home. They might need a few days or even a few weeks to help them get their strength back, to take care of them, keep them safe, keep them on their right regimen for medication and other things while they get their strength back. And the other thing is respite care. Transitional care, as I said, following hospitalization, and it's usually for safety and support for the person or the person's family. And then respite care is very common. It's usually longer term, but it doesn't have to be for a long time during that one particular time. When my mother-in-law was living with us, there came a point in time where my wife and I couldn't both leave the house at the same time. She didn't require a whole lot of care, but she couldn't be left alone. And little by little, Susie had left doing things she really liked doing so that she wouldn't be gone. And initially we had one home care visit a week for 4 hours, and I was astonished at how much a difference that made to Susie, to be able to check out, not be on duty, not be on the clock, not be on alert for something with her mom, and be able to relax a little bit. So we did it more than that for a period of time because it was good for her. So it provides a much needed break for the primary caregiver. Usually, often it's a spouse or an adult child or whatever. Typically it's 4 hours or more per shift, and part of the reason for that is the availability of caregivers, but even more importantly is you really can't check out for any kind of a meaningful break in less than 4 hours. It's not feasible. It could be 1 day a week, could be 7 days a week, could be anything. So, get help. Where are you going to find help? Well, I'm going to unashamedly tell you there's over 1,000 home care agencies in Atlanta. Very few have been in business more than 20 years. The company I work for has been in business 25 years in Atlanta. I'm not selling you about my company, but I'm going to tell you a couple of facts. Very few of them are really actively engaged and connected with all kinds of resources. Chances are really good if you need in-home care, you're also going to need something else. You might need an elder attorney. You might need an estate planner. You might need help with the durable medical equipment, something like that. And there's only one that I know of those 1,000 companies that has a Vietnam veteran to help guide you through the process. So, And I got to tell you, part of the nature of what this industry is like is we're pretty collegial. We work with each other a lot. We help each other a lot, even quote-unquote competitor. And a lot of what we do is take the call for the first time. Mom's coming home from the hospital Thursday, and I don't know where to start. And so we spend a very high percentage of our time just helping guide people through from where they are to help them know what to do and when and who to do it with. What does it cost? I'm almost through. Can you believe that? I'm going to start over again because I got more time. Is that okay? What does it cost? Well, aging in place can be zero, or it can be a huge number. I will tell you, more often than not, the modifications necessary to get about 80% of safety issues resolved is $100 or less. It's not that expensive, but it does need to be done. When I say $100, I'm just throwing that number. Maybe a few hundred, but it's not tens of thousands. Now, if you live in a $1 million home and you want to stay there, and someone has to modify your shower that has marble and granite and all that kind of stuff, and you have to take the walls down and remove that, that's going to cost you some money. But there are certified aging CAPS, they call them CAP specialists, certified aging in place specialists that are construction people that are trained and certified to know what's the best way to deal with space that you have to make it safe in the most cost-effective way. And by the way, grab bars don't have to be ugly. They don't have to look like they came from the hospital. They can make them very attractive equipment like that. What? You can get them at Lowe's. That's right. So aging in place can be all over the charts as far as cost is concerned. Independent living in Atlanta, including personal care homes. Personal care homes might start as low as about $2,000, but assisted living communities typically start about $2,500 and go up to $5,000 or more a month. Most of us don't have $5,000 a month discretionary income, but some of these places will allow you, if you have that kind of money, to stay there and be happy you're there. Assisted living communities are a little bit more expensive because there's more care involved, more staff involved. About $3,000 to $6,000 is the normal range for that. Memory care, a little higher, $3,500 to $7,000 a month. And skilled nursing, if you're paying for it out of pocket, about $8,000 to $12,000 is the normal range for skilled nursing. Yes, sir. That's a very good point. That's on my next slide. Great. How are you going to pay for it? Not through yet. I'll get there in a second. He asked about long-term care insurance. I'm going to get to that slide in a second because that's very important. How much does it cost for help? Hospice care is funded by Medicare. Palliative care is funded by Medicare also, or private insurance, but there's often a copay, maybe $40 per visit. Home health care is funded by Medicare or private insurance, and it may require a copay. Home care, and I put this number up here because you want at least 4 hours a week. It's somewhere around $100 per visit or per week, or a lot. It could be 24/7 care. We have a client right now is getting 24/7 one-on-one care. That's not cheap. This is the question he was asking. How do you pay for this? And I'm going to get to the long-term care. I'll just go ahead and do it now, right? Because I'm here. There it is. Long-term care insurance. If you have it, keep it. Even if you were younger, you cannot buy the rich policies that were available when you bought your policy if you bought one 10, 15, 20 years ago. They don't make them anymore. We have one family that we've been caring for years that has a unlimited amount that can be used for long-term care insurance. There's no limit. Most of it has a cap. Sort of like a Chinese menu. How long is my elimination period? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. You pick one. That changes your rate. How much is the daily rate? You check one. That sets a rate. How long is it good for? How many days or how many weeks or how many months? Usually it's the number of days. Or what's the cap? Is it $250,000? Is it $100,000? All of those numbers change the rate. Do I have to keep paying my premium while I'm receiving care? That's an option. That will change the rate. So whatever you bought 10 or 15 years ago, keep it. I'll tell you what you'll use it for in a minute. It's probably not feasible for you to buy a long-term care policy today. I mean, it's probably not cost-effective to do it, although it's possible. You can check on it. But it might be important that you tell your adult child, you really need to get long-term care insurance. Chances are really good you're going to use it. And today you can get a long-term care policy that also is a rider on a life insurance. You can collect either way. It's good to know that. But the way to pay for it, and what does long-term care, I'm going to get to your question. It's not on the slide, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm sorry, I should have done that. Long-term care insurance will pay for in-home care. It'll pay for care, which means assisted living, the portion of assisted living that's the fee based on the care. It will not pay for independent living because there's no care associated with it. It will not pay for skilled nursing. That's typically paid for by Medicaid, frankly. We're going to get to in a second. But assisted living, memory care that requires hands-on care or home care is funded by long-term care insurance. So how do you fund this? One thing is to consciously make a decision to reduce discretionary income, discretionary spending rather. Very hard for me, easy for Susie, hard for me. Either use it because you need to spend it right now on care, or do it because you can save that money, invest it, and have it available later. Downsize and invest the equity. That's what we did. Good idea. Explore VA benefits. I'm curious how many of you know about aid and attendance. Would you raise your hand just so I know? That's actually more than I thought. Aid and attendance is typically for people that don't have much income and don't have much asset. But it might be appropriate for some of you or someone you know. And I'll give you three characteristics, three criteria for aid and attendance, just so you know. And this is not, it's a government policy, let's face it, it's not simple. Not even close to simple. But in general, you qualify for aid and attendance if you served 90 days on active duty, 1 day of which was during time of conflict, even though you may or may not have served in combat. That's one characteristic, another criteria. Another one is that your expenses for health care essentially have to exceed your income. Now, that can include the living in an assisted living community and that sort of thing, but that's the essence of it. This is not precise, but it gives you the idea. And the other is, in round numbers, you need to have less than $80,000, roughly, in liquid assets. That can be accomplished through moving money into a trust fund. There's ways to do that. And as opposed to 5-year look back for Medicaid, there's no look back currently for VA aid and attendance. You can make that transition of your assets today and apply for aid and attendance tomorrow. It doesn't apply to everybody in this room, may not apply to anybody in this room, but it's good to know about it. It's been a well-kept secret for many years. Also, as I mentioned earlier, not necessarily make your plan based on this, but there is a possibility of using your VA eligibility to go to a VA skilled nursing facility at some point. Reverse mortgage is not quite the shameful talk that it used to be. There are some legitimate reverse mortgage companies there today. It used to be a bad deal. It's not something you should willy-nilly go into, but it's something that you might consider. There are situations where reverse mortgage can be very helpful if you're going to stay in your home and you need funding to help provide some care for you. You can borrow basically against your equity and you will still own your home, and there's some things you can do with that. I'm not recommending it, I'm recommending you consider it if you need to. And of course, Medicaid is a last resort. Medicaid, by the way, in rough numbers, I'm not an expert about this, but you need about $2,000 in assets or less. Unless you're married, then it's going to be like $120,000. And your income will be used for whatever Medicaid services you're getting, less about $50 a month for spending whatever you want to spend it on. So it's kind of your last resort. And I did shamelessly say, I am here to help you. I'll be glad to talk to anybody about your situation and figure out what's the best alternatives for you. and guide you in that, whether or not you end up doing any business with my company or not. And I also have a lot of connections, hundreds of connections to other companies. And I'll know which ones are reliable and worth talking to. For example, if you're thinking about moving into, or having someone you know moving into a senior community, there are free resources available that can help you do that and not cost you anything. And there are some that are really good and some that are not so good, as with anything else, I guess. Elder attorneys that can really help you get your affairs in order. There's a number of those that are reasonable. There's a number of those that are really, really good and really, really expensive, and depending on what your appetite is, there's a lot of choices there. But that's basically what I had to tell you today. Any questions or comments? No? Nothing? All right, thanks.